morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. This morning, consumer rage. What's driving the anger behind the rage customer service and hospitality representatives are experiencing, and how it's affecting the bottom line for businesses. It's all about the poor service, really. And then that's according to a new study. Also, with the failure of two banks and seemingly more to come, what are we doing as African Americans? Is it time to put our money back under the pillow? Do we trust the banks? We'll discuss. And Black Press Week continues in Washington, D.C. We'll talk about that as well. But we'll do it all, actually, with the one and only Sam P.K. Collins. Good morning, Sam.
Morning, morning. Good to see you.
Always good to have Sam. Uh, Washington Informer extraordinaire, the
Yeah,
one and
thanks.
only. Sam, according to a new study, second rate customer service efforts have led to more consumer rage than ever, and patrons have become more belligerent when complaining. Customer care measurement and consulting and the Center for Services Leadership and Research Center at the WPKC School of Business at the Arizona State University conducted a national consumer rage survey. It found that the alarmingly high rate of rudeness by customers was linked to things that have become normal in business settings. The survey found that businesses risk losing $887 billion in future sales because they handle customer service complaints poorly, and that's up from 494 billion in 2020. Sam, people are not happy with customer service and they are acting out.
There are a lot of factors, and speaking as somebody who is known to make a Yelp review or two, when I experience bad customer service, uh, a lot of people who represent companies don't have good etiquette when it comes to engaging their customers.
Correct.
They're the face of the company, and they're belligerent, they're impatient, they may not know what's going on, they may not have the answers that are suitable. And as a consumer, you can get frustrated. At the very same time, we have to keep in mind that these people may not be getting the paid be not may not be getting paid the most money. And these jobs, especially since the pandemic, have either not been filled, or there's a lot of turnover, a lot of attrition. So the retention of quality employees is not very high like it used to be, because people have higher standards for themselves and their relationships with their employers. So we've seen a situation over the last couple of years, especially since the pandemic, where the bosses of industry, even as the economy went into a spiral, they have retained profits. So they're maintaining the profits, and they're not putting it back into hiring the best of the best. Or when they do have the best of the best, they put most of the work on them, while the other workers are expected to just be mediocre. So a lot of that spills over into poor customer service, and people being frustrated, they lash out, and you see conflict. And it's just a byproduct of living in a capitalist society where we want everything done on time and very fast.
Yeah, according to the survey, the top customer rage highlighted in the study included 74% of customers reported experiencing a product or service problem in the past year, more than doubling since 1976. Product and service problems can be disappointing, costly, and distressing, the author said. They said 56% of customers felt that the problem wasted their time, an average of 1 to 2 days of lost time. 43% cited a loss of money, an average of $1,261, and 31% suffered emotional distress. But look, beyond the numbers, and in reality, I found personally, you go into a restaurant or particularly if it's fast food,
Hmm.
but even you see the rage and air travel and traveling and talking to some folks, you see that the level of service, the level of professionalism is no longer there really on both sides. And what this survey is saying is that it's one driving the other. It's the poor service that's driving the unprofessionalism on the consumer side.
Yeah, it's the case of the chicken or the egg, but I think that You know, I will also say that there's a culture change. I know that um, I don't want to age myself, but as a millennial, we're often on the cusp of two different mindsets. You know, growing up in the '90s, still having dial-up, and then being the older cousins and brothers of Generation Z, who's just been immersed in technology. There's a different mindset. You know, back during my adolescence, I wouldn't mind taking what's called the lower tier job and grinding it out to learn the tricks of the trade to rise up in stature. But a lot of the young people don't have that mindset. They want, you know, those six figures now. They want to
Yeah.
find new ways of making money. They want to be for themselves. They want to be bosses, you know, and a lot of that permeates into how they navigate the service industry. You know, they're not going to give you the best customer service because oftentimes, and I don't want to make generalizations, they're either on their phone, they don't have an intimate understanding of the company itself, with so much turnover, or they're just not going to go the extra mile knowing that they're making $16 to $18 an hour, which does not even cover the cost of living. So it's
Right.
a different type of mindset, and the companies oftentimes aren't doing things to ensure that, you know, they're going to get the bang for their buck in terms of rising up and learning certain tricks of the trade to expand their professional resume.
Yeah.
So it, you know, you know, it definitely falls back on the companies, um, and there needs to be more incentives. You know, I can't speak as a maven in the industry, but what I will say is that there's a gap between the salaries of the bosses and of the workers. You know, and if you want to attract workers, if you want to give workers something to work for, you got to help them see that there is uh, a light at the end of the road if they're going to be here at the front desk. That there's more to what they're doing. That they can learn a skill set as they're working. But even with that, the change in mindset, everybody wants to be a boss. And
Yeah.
some people are just not good bosses because they're not good employees. They don't want to learn, you know, the different parts of the system, and they don't appreciate that. And we see that in the poor customer service.
Well, Power 96 writes in. He says bosses with no skills. I think that's part of an issue with some too. That they have somebody over them who doesn't have the skills they have. And Terry Thomas says the companies need to train the people. So both can be true, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Because, man, you know, you have plenty of bosses because they got the money behind them. They're asking things of the workers that the workers know that's not possible because they have the skill set, they have the knowledge, and workers get frustrated. You get hired for a job because it's understood that you trust their judgment, and then when you trust, and then the bosses don't even trust them to make judgment calls at times. So it's a lot of frustration on both ends. You know, it's a lot of people who want to be bosses and act like bosses who just don't have that intimate skill set, or just the wherewithal for going through the processes.
Yeah, and Mike V writes in too. Now, and I think there's something to this. I'm not going to put it all on Damon Dash, but he says Damon Dash has poisoned our community with his boss talk, and Sam is laughing. But we see that with people like Damon Dash, people, so many others too, right? These celebrities, these entertainers, eh, they got a break, right? They got a break. It wasn't necessarily just because of their skill set. They got a break, right?
I'm not going to go off on a tangent here. I respect Damon Dash. And I still don't like how Jay Z did Damon Dash and Biggs. You know,
Oh,
you know, and
I'm
Jay
with
Z
you on that.
and Jay Z acknowledged that at an award show not too long ago when he got an award. He acknowledged Damon Dash, so that's good. But as far as the skill set, Damon Dash had the money when they built Rockefeller. Now, how he got the money, I'm not going to speak on the record about that, but he had the money, and he had a private school education that gave him the business acumen to take
Hmm.
to take Rockefeller to that level. So, you know, some people might say that Damon's being salty when he talks the boss talk, but at the very same time, he has a knowledge base and he came up in an era where hip hop was just getting mainstream, and he took Jay-Z to a level that allowed Jay-Z to take over the Def Jam top office. So, you know, what I will agree with is that in the age of social media, people take the boss talk and they don't understand the work that is underneath it, because social media shows you only but so much.
Right.
To be a boss, you got to put in that work. Bosses work harder than employees. They got a lot more skin in the game in terms of time, in terms of what they have to lose. You know, if you're making a consistent paycheck and you have some sort of certainty in your earnings as a worker, as a boss, you got to make payroll. You got to make sure that the sheet is balanced. You know, you got a lot of people on your back. So a lot of people don't understand that. And in our community, as Africans living in America, the majority of our businesses, from my understanding, are not companies that can hire dozens or hundreds of people. We still have family owned businesses where you only have less than a dozen people on the payroll, but we don't know how to scale to production. We don't have that knowledge base. And that comes from, you know, us trying to catch up. But social media does not make that better when people just want to do boss talk and don't want to do the work behind it in building systems.
Well, Austin Cooper says good home training leads to a professional workforce. With all this rage, I don't know. I mean, that's true. This what he
Hey,
just
Power
said is very
96,
true, but Sam's having the time this morning.
Hey, go ahead.
So, it,
Go
keep
ahead.
it. Power 96 going in on Damon Dash, though. He says, keep it real. Dash was an educated drug dealer. I said the quiet part out loud. And Paris Brown of the Baltimore Times says, we find that young people want to be famous, want followers. We had someone who was working on our social media and was equally concerned with their platform. They didn't want to answer the phone or do anything to support the small business. They told us that they only do social media. And Power 96 again says most Black-owned businesses only have 2 employees. Yeah, boss is boss. Whoever the boss is, though, they need to. Obviously, they're losing money, according to this report, because of customer rage based on poor customer service. So we got to fix the in-house stuff here, regardless if you're a boss or not. And like you said, Sam, I do agree with a lot of what you said, as particularly going back when you said people just don't want to do the grinding part. They don't want to start and grind it out and figure it out. So I think that's where we at. Michelle Madison says, Michael Haney Sr., what do you think? As the president of a hospitality company, I guess Michael Haney Sr. is watching. All right. So we'll leave the rage behind us right now. Bailouts of banks. I just saw this morning Credit Suisse got a $54 billion lifeline out there in Switzerland. So the beat goes on. Bailout became a curse word in American politics. Remember in 2008, after the global financial crisis that President Obama had inherited, fueling backlash among people who felt the risk and potential consequences of capitalism didn't apply to big corporations or the wealthy. Now, the recent failure of 2 major banks have pushed the bailout word back to the center of the nation's political and economic debates. For African Americans, Sam, is it time to put the money back under the pillow? Because more than 18% of African Americans don't have traditional bank accounts compared to 7% of all Americans. So we are told we need to have bank accounts and things of that nature, because if you're going to go buy a house, they're going to check your bank account. Certain things, they got to check your bank account. But where do we go? I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they were telling me that their child has like $2,000-3,000 in the bank and can't afford to lose that. I can't afford to lose $2,000-3,000 to the bank. What do we do, Sam?
My understanding is that the FDIC protects up to 250,000. So,
Well,
I
there's a
mean, I think it's
caveat to that, though. And the
okay.
caveat. So in this case, though, let me be clear first before I give you the caveat. In this case, the 2 banks, the Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, the administration stepped in and said, we are making these people whole right away. Now, that's great. that's great because folks, these companies had 40 million, some had 100 something million or whatever in the bank. But the FDIC does, you're 100% right, covers up to $250,000. But what most people don't know, we talked about this the other day, is that $250,000 they can pay in increments. And I'm talking, they have the right to even say, we'll give you $1 a year for 250 years. So let's not hang our hats too much on the FDIC's insurance. So with that said, though, we have not traditionally had a lot of confidence in America's banking system. We talk a lot about black banks, but we haven't had a lot of confidence. I've talked to people. Look, I wrote a book for Stevie Wonder and his mom some years ago, 2002. And one of the more compelling stories Stevie Wonder's mother told me was how she saved up all this money. She was in an abusive relationship, and she saved up all this money under her mattress to finally get away with her kids, her 5 kids, away from her husband who was abusive. And she saved enough money, and that's how she was able to leave. It was under her mattress. And we hear stories. I've heard other stories, I should say, about black folks putting money under the mattress. And here's why. I mean, the banks continue. You don't. How could you have confidence as a black person? Now, I said, the president did bail out. The government did step in and say, we're making everybody whole. But think about who had their money in Silicon Valley Bank. It wasn't us.
No, it was Zoom, DoorDash, a lot of the tech companies that aren't really solving tech problems. And that's another thing, we've got to look at this in the context of the tech bubble. Over the last year, a lot of tech people have been losing their jobs because, the tech companies are overextending themselves. When the interest rates were near zero at the height of the pandemic,
Yep.
They poured a lot of money into it. And what we saw this past weekend was a result of the interest rates booming again and people trying to recalibrate. So, once again, people on, regular people, they catch hell once again. Not to mention, if you look at, and the Biden administration, what I say is when it comes to Democrats and Republicans, the only color that matters is green, and Donald Trump was a bit more blunt about it, but President Biden, and members of Congress with this whole reporting your income from Cash App and Zelle and all that,
Right.
that's just why are you targeting people who work the gig economy when you have bigger fish to fry, in terms of, making people pay they just due. It's just an avoidance of what's the elephant in the room. And this shows it once again. And even with Biden saying that, the bailout money will come from bank fees, I'm not entirely sure how credible that statement is. I'm not, I just have a skepticism about that because, it's, people say that bailouts are socialism for the rich. And I happen to agree to an extent. I wouldn't call it socialism, but they are getting more money than we would in that particular situation.
Well, and Paris Brown says, with tech, there's nothing tangible to sell, no physical assets to recuperate the money, and she's right about that too. We are we are looking at. I think you're right. Maybe the way Biden phrased that, or he spoke of it. Well, I can't. There's no maybe behind it. He said what he said, right?
Mhm.
But what? It's a bad. We get the. I laugh and pause because no matter how we look at it, Sam, we are always coming up short. You remember, of course, you remember Denise Barnes, and Denise Barnes. She was an editor at the Washington Informer, and she always would use that term. You just short. You just short. and we are just short.
Exactly.
It's just the way that. And when we talk about reparations, this is one of the billions of reasons why we talk about reparations, because we are always shorted somehow, some way. And
Well, at
this is
one
just another
point,
way, because this money that, a- again, I'm glad these people, they deserve their money back, right? But look who these people are. And I say again, if that were you and I, we fall under that FDIC thing where, okay, so you have 5 grand in this account. We'll give it back to you. We'll give you a couple of hundred a month.
yeah, I think I mean, I would like to explore more deeply credit unions and more indigenous systems of banking. That don't rely on these institutions. We have a particular situation in this country where at one point in time we were currency. And you can't. Speaking about reparations, you just can't let that go. And we get so caught up in the conversation about reparations on money where we don't think about other tangible things. I saw one of the comments talking about technology. As a stockholder, I got little stocks here and there. I don't really invest in tech companies. I like investing in things that have use, that are tangible, like food, um, utilities, and with this whole pivot to the cryptocurrencies and the technology, we're forgetting that black farmers, are losing their resources as well, and they're fighting for it because land is the ultimate resource. Malcolm X said it. You need a whole new monopoly board to fight these people. You can't fight them on their monopoly board. And if you're talking about DC, we're in DC where you're paying a mortgage for a house, but you don't own the land on the house itself. It's the very same situation because the powers that be, they know that land is the ultimate bargaining chip. And here we are, they're pivoting because you see the same thing happening in India and in Nigeria.
Yep.
They're digitizing everything. They taking out the paper currency and the streets are going hungry. Women can't even go to the hospital and safely give birth because they're not taking paper currency anymore. So they're taking us through Web3 and the cryptocurrency and this whole matrix type technology apparatus, and keeping us out of the physical, where it was the physical that allowed us to flourish as a people. Because even as chattel, we had skills that Booker T. Washington wanted us to flourish in, as such as farming, um, growing crops, masonry, things like that.
Yeah.
And it's just sad, And to answer your question, we need to go back to systems that were a bit more tangible. They're taking us out of our bodies with this whole technology thing. And it's
Yeah.
been a long time coming. We saw it in the movies. It's happening in real time now.
Yeah, Auntie Nakia is watching. She says, yes, when it comes to us, it seems like we are still a day late and a dollar short. And then she goes on to say, it is in a time when people say we need banks to help with credit, etc. Crashes like that just make us distrust further. This is why we need more Black-owned banks, and we need to support Black-owned banks. And we need Black-owned banks to support us. Give us the loan, she says. So support our small businesses. Invest in us as we invest in you. And that's the thing, right? That's what makes it go around. You want to keep it circulating. When we talk about circulating that dollar in the community, that's how you do it, right?
Exactly. And the interest rates make it even worse. You can't even, the interest rates are high. The return on your investment when you deposit money in the bank is low. I think the interest rates on accruing funds is less than 1% or so. So it's like, what do you do? The whole system is just janky. And man, that's as real as I can say it. It's really janky. And I understand um people's enthusiasm, because you have your Wall Street trappers, your Terry Egiomas. They're teaching us how to navigate these systems. At the same time, there is some concern about, once again, you know, when they see us going into it, they being the powers that be, they change the rules on us to make it even harder. The same thing happened with crypto. As soon as we started getting into it, then the federal government wanted to take it over. They started, letting these machines get in the gas stations. When crypto was something that was off the grid, people were flourishing back in '09. I had college friends investing in crypto. They were making money. But as soon as everybody got their hands on it, the government wanted to regulate it, and then it just fell. So, I think that's the lesson. If everybody knows about it, if it's part of the mainstream, then you're too late. And
Yep.
then at that point, it's just dangerous to go into it. Not to say you shouldn't, but you should keep that in the back of your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And Sam, of course, it is Black Press Week. Today, we got some special things going on at the Let It Be Known Studios in DC at the home office of the NNPA, where we're going to have some fun. We're going to have some food, some drinks, some shows going on. And, we hope that everybody enjoys the rest of this Black Press Week. Westside Gazette publisher Bobby Henry will go live for his 2-minute warning show at 8 tonight from our studios. And he'll be talking about Black Press Week. David Wright, Perry Busby will be with him as well. And of course, tomorrow is the State of the Black Press address at the National Press Club, where Dr. Benjamin Chavis, our president and CEO, will deliver that summation. And we'll be joined there by Congressman Benny Thompson of Mississippi. Following that, our distinguished Black press publishers will head to the White House, where White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre is scheduled to host the Black Press in celebration of Black Press Week and the 196th anniversary of the Black Press of America. So, Sam's big week, big day today. I'll be getting on the Excella shortly, headed down your way, and we'll have some fun today, tomorrow, and doing some Black Press things the way Black Press, only the Black Press knows how to do it. How important, Sam, is Black Press Week? It should be Black Press Month, but how important is Black Press Week?
Black Press Week is every week to me. I wake up, think about the Black Press. I love the Black Press. The Black Press gave me, and I got my dog here. He loves the Black Press too. So,
Dog
but
loves the Black Press.
right. So, Ida B. Wells is one of the ancestors who I respect dearly, and she was born into enslavement, and during the Reconstruction era, she came up, went through the education system, Black-owned education systems, and wrote for the Black Press at a time where Black literacy was increasing throughout the South. More of us were learning how to read. And when I think about the Black Press, I think about how, it's very important for our people to be informed and to see news from their vantage point. But I also think about how in the age of social media, there's a risk of us not being totally literate. The reading stamina, as an educator myself, is not there in some of our young people. And a lot of people, they want to watch more videos than they do read. And not to dismiss videos, because we're doing this right now, but the proof is in the pudding being that written word. So as I go into Black Press Week, I think about how we can not only mold the next generation of journalists, but how we can better support educators and create institutions where young people from a very young age are building their reading stamina, their writing stamina, so that we can have a readership that wants to be informed and can actually read what we're writing.
Yeah. Black Press Week is always a time again to reflect, if you could say it that way, because as you said, we live and breathe it every day, but to reflect on the importance, particularly given the time we live in. The other day we spoke with Jet Magazine's president, and we can eliminate the magazine part now, right? It's just Jet. He made sure Dalen Golf said it's just Jet. And you think about the history of Jet, the history with Emmett Till, how, like Dalen said, it started a movement. Yeah, sure. Other Black boys and men were being killed in Mississippi before Emmett Till, but it was that moment. It was that moment that ignited the civil rights movement, really. And as he compared it to today with George Floyd, it was social media that really ignited that movement. and black folks responded, right? They responded to Emmett Till. They responded to George Floyd, and Jet chronicled Emmett Till. They led in chronicling Emmett Till. Then, of course, there's Ebony, and of course, there's the Freedom's Journal, the first where it all began, the first black newspaper. In fact, I always say it because it always impresses me when someone says it, or I hear myself say it, that they began in 1827. Slavery is still going on in 1827. And so when they say we wish to plead our own cause in 1827, do you know the type of boldness that took? And that's the thing that we still need today, that boldness. That, listen, Bobby Henry loves to repeat that soldiers without swords, right? Well, and we are, but we can't be afraid, Sam. We can't be afraid. And too many black journalists who work for mainstream media, they work and I'm not knocking working for mainstream. I work for mainstream. I'm not knocking it at all. Hey, you making a living, but they're afraid on a lot of fronts. And there's no way to do this job being afraid if you're going to do it effectively, right?
You can't be afraid. The truth is an offense, but it's not a sin. You got to air it out. We can't conflate celebrities and politicians. There are no friends in this business as far as the people who you interview. You got to bring it out. Your first priority is the truth and your credibility as a reporter. So you come first, and the people who you write for, your readers, come second. And I would say government officials and mavens in industry, they're at the bottom of the totem pole. And some people might agree or disagree. In my writing, the furthest I will go is give them a chance to speak to the accusations being levied against them. But I think that black journalists, and I think that as the word journalist gets confused in the age of social media, a lot of people are getting too friendly. There was a celebrity, a reality television star, who was on a show with Tamron Hall, and later on she talked to DJ Envy and complained about how Tamron Hall grilled her about controversial issues, and just saying that Tamron Hall was hating or was messy, being gossipy, when in fact Tamron Hall was doing her job as a journalist. And as a journalist, or somebody being interviewed by a seasoned journalist, you should always expect to have to answer the hard questions. This is not softball we're playing. People want to know the information, so they're going to put you on Front Street about it. And we got to get back to that. We can't be afraid to lose, because once whoever pays the piper plays the tune. And for too long, especially in the post-civil rights era, since the 1970s, when they took away our radicals among us, we've been capitulated to certain forces that want to keep us in a certain box. And we got to get back to the fundamentals, because, we're not as free as we think. At least some of us aren't. And I'll keep it at that.
Power 96 says, I'll call him out. Don Lemon is afraid.
Not too hard for my liking. I'm not mad. He copped the plea so quick, but I'll
too quick, right?
Too quick. Like,
I mean, it didn't take any pushing or prodding.
Nothing. It's like, bro, you already got the name. Like, if they fire you, you can make your own show right then and there. You'll be straight, man. Like, stop popping.
Look, right. And that's the thing too. That's the frustrating thing too. Even the established ones, right? The ones who have the name, like you said, and as Greer said, he telling on everybody. But the ones who you would think that they would have more stamina for this. They would have more, like, you know what? I'm going to stand my ground. But not done.
No, they've been drinking it. They're too used to the pomp and circumstance to what that industry has afforded them, because they want proximity. They don't want truth. They want proximity. They want celebritization. They want to mix and mingle with the stars, with the politicians.
That's what it's all about.
Look, very slow. Yeah, go ahead. My fault.
Yeah, no, not at all. I had a couple questions too, because Power 96 brings up I think a great point. Keith says, "Keep it real. Mainstream black journalists will grill black people, but it is afraid to go afraid to grill Mr. Charlie." And with that said, right? Um, we've seen we've seen this. People criticize Gayle King when she interviewed R. Kelly, um, and then people criticize Oprah when she interviewed those young men who accused Michael Jackson of sexual molestation, right? And they saw this uh, attitude with Oprah and Gayle that they felt if, like, for instance, if it was not R. Kelly, if it was Louis C.K. perhaps, um, Gayle would not have went as hard. And as far as Oprah was concerned, the biggest complaint was that, she, Michael gave her that big interview back in the 90s and had always been kind to her. And yet, she throws up these, in their words, not mine, these two white boys that accused him. And she's, kind of pushing their narrative. And this is the problem that some people have with black journalists. If you're going to go after black folks, you got to go after white folks too, right?
You got to be equal opportunity. Everybody got to get it. Everybody's not exempt. Nobody's exempt because that just throws dirt on your credibility. And my understanding is that Michael Jackson's situation, may he rest in peace, was debunked eventually. In the end, there was some credibility around his accusers. That's my understanding. And if I recall correctly, there were calls for Oprah to rescind elements of that interview anyway. So you have people doing the bidding of the people who pad their pockets, and people are just afraid. Once again, we get caught up in the material, instead of what really matters, which is, to bring up Dame Dash again, which is ownership to an extent, but ownership of your name. All you have in the industry is your name, and that's all you got, quite honestly, by the end of the day. Nobody can say that you folded as a journalist. Nobody should be able to say that.
Well, and true, and I think, and Greer's making that point about Oprah. I don't think anybody can say she folded either, because she, it's not like she needed any money. She believes what she believes, and understand. Look, I'll say this, and I know people hate to hear me say it. Particularly not just before, I had my thoughts on that whole situation with the two accusers with Michael, but after watching that Leaving Neverland special, to me, you couldn't be human if you wasn't moved at all, regardless they being white, whether they were white or not. You had to be moved, and watching Leaving Neverland. She is Oprah. Oprah's Oprah. I've never been. I appreciate Oprah. I appreciate her. What she's done. She's opened doors. She's blazed trails. That doesn't mean you have to be a fan, and I'm just not a fan of Oprah. But I do think that she, like Greer said, she believes what she believes. I didn't like, and I know we're going down another bad street here, but I didn't like the way she handled the Russell Simmons situation. I think that once she bowed out, she should have told the truth as to why she bowed out of that documentary. She said, there was some problems. Well, because of the situation, spell the problems out. Don't leave it out there like that. She had conversations with Russell before that interview and just before, and no, and she's right. He couldn't make her pull out. She pulled out because she realized that she was going down a slippery slope. And when Oprah puts a name on something, it has to be right. And I don't blame her for that. If I'm going to put my name on my art, it should be right. It should be right. So, anyway, Sam, Black Press Week, we got off track, didn't we? Black Press Week.
So it's all relevant. I
It's
like
all
where
relevant.
you're going. But you got to put respect on the Black press's name. They people, I listen. I love working with Black people. Black people, we got our things with us. We're diverse, we're different, but we got a base level understanding of our situation. You
Yeah.
can't go to any mainstream paper. I done been in situations with like non-black editors trying to explain the basic things to them about why a story was valid. I'm tired of that, and by
Mhm.
the grace of the most high, I will never go back to that.
Yeah.
So not doing that.
Well, just Mike V is taking me back. He says he didn't like the way they handled Kobe Bryant's death by bringing up things he was acquitted of. That I agree 100% with, and that was Gayle King, and that's when Snoop Dogg went off.
Oh
And
yeah.
I agree that at that moment there was, and this is again black journalist who works for white media, mainstream media, right? That was Gayle King, CBS. How do you in that moment? I mean, his body wasn't even cold. How do you in that moment bring up the rape allegation, from years ago as among the first questions that you ask in that situation? That was Get Rhea says now Gail did need the money, but that was atrocious journalism right there. That was like she was acting like her name was Clarence Thomas. Oh gosh, horrible. Sam says no comment. Well, um, Black Press Week. Appreciate you, black journalists who work for black newspapers and black websites, black owned, because there's a difference. We see BET is up for sale, and Byron Allen and Tyler Perry are both vying to buy it. It'll be black owned again, finally, and that's what you want, right? Black owned. I guess Sam is like, mm.
I mean, I, I'll take it. I don't. Their politics.
It's politics, yeah.
Yeah, if I'll say this, if they're going to pump money into it, they got to allow some space, for more of the independent nationalist leftist voices. Now that's yet to be seen, but
Mhm.
you do have other outlets that are out of the mainstream who do that. You got different degrees of like political affiliation, but I I could celebrate that. Tyler Perry, Byron Allen. Okay, cool. But I'm not going. I'm not going to. I'll wait and see. I'm a wait and see type of person. That's what I'll say. Wait, but I'm not gonna just jump up and down just yet. I'll say that.
Yeah, yeah. Same here. Because I, yeah, she said, Sam, are you seeing the notes? If Byron,
Listen, she on point. Listen,
his
listen.
kids, ain't no way his kids will marry a black man.
I'm just saying the transfer of wealth. Like, there's no consciousness. I think we
Yeah.
lost that as a people. People are just afraid to be black. People and like they done watered down blackness. The word woke has been
Oh
taken into the
gosh,
mainstream. Like first the
gosh.
liberals watered it down, and then the conservatives made it a rallying cry. They don't even know where it came from. We just sell elements of our culture for sale, and we just we market it and we water it down.
Yeah.
We got to understand what the rawness of blackness. What does blackness, and I think it goes back to respecting, mama and papa. Like,
Yep.
those of us who were, on the farms, before we came to the city way back when, who were telling stories, certain spiritual elements, like all of that's important. We just forgot about that. We lost sight of that. We're all about the brand now. We're all about celebrity. And it is killing us as a people, man. Like, and I did see that Diddy was also trying to buy BET. And Diddy, I don't respect. and I will say this, and just one thing I will say. Not too long ago, there was a reporter who was on Diddy's platform who called Kwame Ture anti-Semitic. There was this whole thing about anti-Semitism that came up, and they conflated anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism, and they brought Kwame Ture's name up in it. They brought the Nation of Islam up in it, and I'm just like, you have no, your political knowledge, your political base is infected, is poisoned because it's not African centered at all. And it's just, we as a people are going to be lost as long as we keep thinking from their paradigm. It's nothing to celebrate if the people who are buying it don't have a consciousness at all. Do not have a consciousness. If you're going to keep pumping the same stuff, if you're going to keep pumping Baby Boy and not Francis Cress Welsing, who's quoted at the beginning of Baby Boy, then BET is just going to be the same. I'll leave it at that.
I am 1,000% with you on Diddy. 1,000. I couldn't be more with you. In other words, on Diddy. I guess we can leave it at that, because one thing we don't like to do is pile on in the black press. But my gosh, some people need to be called
it's
out.
The truth.
Some people need to be called out. And that's the thing with the black press as well. We shouldn't be afraid if we got to call one of our, it's like, look, you at the family barbecue and somebody acting up. You gotta do something about that. Exactly. You got to let them know. Exactly. In the black press, we have to call them out. We can't just let them skate. Some people have this thing where if they black, you should not, as a black journalist, say anything negative about them. I say, yeah, right.
No, you got to.
You got to. You got to. Power 96 says, I wouldn't work for Diddy. I will take my chances with Suge Knight. Which tells you his level of respect for Diddy. You got to call folks out.
Nah, Diddy, those contracts. You ask the Locks, ask Craig Mack, may his soul rest in peace. Ask the band, ask Mace. There was some artists recently who signed to Diddy. I think they eviscerated them on social media. It's like all the stuff you done learned about Diddy. Yeah. How I'll leave it at that. But then he had the whole vote or die thing back in 2004, and it's like, come on, man! Like, you waited until the height of the election season to say that, first of all, and second of all, I'm of the understanding, from my vantage point, that telling people to vote without offering any kind of political education is asinine, because the vote is going to go somewhere. And I've said it time and time again, we are afraid as a people. And since 1972, when the Democratic Party took the black political operation that we organized, black people have been in political hell, because we think that we're caught in between a rock and a hard place, but we just don't believe in ourselves enough to do without them. And Diddy, Oprah Winfrey, and the other celebrities who are the buffer groups of the black community continue to lead us into a burning house. The burning house being ran by old politicos such as James Clyburn out of South Carolina. Yes, I said it. And the only reason why the brother Marcel did not beat James Clyburn was because his whole political operation was immature. He kept being divisive, against black immigrants, and he kept his political organizing in social media without even going throughout Clyburn's district and engaging people, because otherwise Clyburn would have been out of there. And Clyburn spoke to that, which I thought was true. But at the very same time, you have him, you have Hakeem Jeffries, who's a Zionist himself, all of this black leadership who is leading us into hell. It's the truth of the matter. But you do have young black politicos who are coming up, but they still don't have an infrastructure that we can all go into. We're still dependent on the Democratic Party.
Well, we're going to leave it at that this morning. Thanks, as always, Sam PK Collins. Everybody, it is Black Press Week. Join us, whether you can be there in person or just support on the side. Like and subscribe to the Let It Be Known YouTube channel, the Let It Be Known YouTube channel. Do it for Black Press Week, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.